Hi, and welcome to the Changing Perspectives podcast, the show where we discuss a variety of topics including grief, parenting, health and wellness, and relationships. Join us and explore a number of changing perspectives. We're your hosts, Jenni and Josh Brennan. Happy Monday, Jenni.
Thank you. For a second, I was like, I thought you were going to say Happy Mother's Day, so I was like...
Hey, don't... Oh, I thought you were going to pull down the fourth wall there. Not really recording this on Monday, but happy Monday, everybody. We hope everybody had a great weekend. We are back with you, Changing Perspectives, back on a Monday. We took last Monday off, but we are back here. Everett says hello to everybody. He needed to shake his head out. Episode 28, we are back with you with another parenting topic for today. But we wanted to remind you, don't forget to like us, review us, and follow us. Check out all of our great previous episodes. We just released one last Thursday on a grief topic, complicated versus uncomplicated grief. Jenni took us through those topics expertly, as she would do. Stay tuned for the summer, everybody. We have lots of great stuff planned for the coming weeks. We hope everybody had a great weekend. Jenni, your birthday is coming in 6 days or something like that from when this is released.
True story.
Yeah.
Yes, and I had wanted to do... Oh, I feel like I'm shouting.
Why isn't your headset
Because they're
on?
hurting my ears.
Okay, you're so funny.
They hurt my ears.
Okay.
Headphones hurt my ears.
You don't have to put headphones on. You don't have to.
They're hurting.
I can hear you just fine. I can listen for both of us.
Okay. Well, I don't trust you after our technical issues last week, or the week before.
The week before.
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't,
Listen, we went all through that in the last episode.
I almost got a new producer.
I know.
Found a new studio in town.
New co-host.
Yeah.
Go ahead. What were you going to say?
I don't remember.
Yeah.
Oh, I was going to do, since I'm turning 40, I wanted to do the 40 things I've learned in life, but...
You can still do that.
Haven't done it.
It's going to be a summer celebration. You have some plans for your birthday.
It's a summer of celebration.
Yeah.
Is that what our summer is
Yes.
nicknamed?
Yes.
Okay.
Well, you have plans on your birthday that don't include the boys and I, which is fine. You're going to have lots of fun with friends. And then we're going away, which is very exciting. It's kind of for your birthday.
Yes.
We're going away. And
we did decide on Disney without doing Disney.
Yes.
So we did officially book. And
it's official. We're going.
We're official.
Flights.
We're going. We've booked flights. We booked
Lodging.
a rental car. We are doing Disney like we have never done Disney
Yes.
before. We are staying off property.
So exciting, though.
In a house with a pool in a resort community.
It's really an Orlando vacation, right? That's what we're doing. But we're also going to check out
Here's what
Disney
it actually
Springs.
is. I'm pretending we're leaving the country and that we're going to be at a tropical all-inclusive.
Are you going to speak
You're
in
my
your
bartender.
Irish, Jamaican, Mexican accent the entire
For sure.
week? Okay.
Yeah. You're my bartender.
Okay.
And
no mimosas, though.
And no, I'm not allowed to have mimosas. I'm not allowed bottomless
That's
mimosas
a different
in Florida.
episode.
That's right. Florida trusts you to have happy hour and stuff.
Yeah.
We'll have to look for deals. So we are going on vacation. That is true. And then I don't know what's happening right now.
Yeah.
Dogs.
As
we said in our last episode, it will. Well, you're calling it a celebration of a summer
celebration.
I think it's going to be a summer of interruptions.
Interruptions,
we are in the summer, and so the boys are home.
The boys are home.
So the boys are making themselves some lunch, and Lola has decided that she would like some lunch.
Yes. Well, my whole point was that, you've got your birthday plans.
Right. There's still time for me to come with my 40.
This whole, and my 40th is in the fall, so we're just going to, it's all about, this is the year of turning 40.
Somewhere between your birthday and mine, you could do 20, I could do 20, 20 plus 20 is 40. Then we each come up with our top 20 lessons in life and go from there.
Yes.
Okay.
Speaking of upcoming episode content, check out the Instagram page and Facebook page for Changing Perspectives and submit your questions. Jenni put out a questions post. We're going to do a listener mail, listener questions episode at some point too. So go ahead and participate in that. So, Jenni, what are we going to talk about today? We tease this. We're going to talk about a parenting topic. So what are we going to discuss?
We are talking about how to parent with hope when things seem pretty hopeless.
And this is based on an article you wrote a while ago?
I actually think I wrote this article, I feel like it was after the Orlando Pulse nightclub shooting. I feel like I originally wrote it then.
And this was recently published on a Medium outlet called The Ascent.
Right. Exactly.
So check out, I'm going to shout that out at the end there, but check out The Ascent. Just Google that and check out Jenni's article, Parenting with Hope When Things Seem Hopeless.
Yeah. And so this kind of came up to this bubbles up to the surface, unfortunately, quite often. When anytime there are these like large events like the Pulse nightclub shooting or Sandy Hook or anything like that happens, those moments that sort of bring you to your knees as a parent and makes you think, oh my goodness, they're just not safe. So these come up to the surface. This sort of feeling comes up to the surface, unfortunately, quite often. Sort of that notion that like, I want to put my kids in a bubble. What is this world coming to? So decided to sort of talk about this because of a couple incidents that happened in our family a few weeks ago. The big one being that, or one of the bigger ones being that all of our kids were outside. Well, we only have 2 kids. Our kids were outside, and we had family over, our nieces and nephew, and so they all were playing outside in the street. We live on a dead-end street. It was kind of drizzly out. They were just having like good old-fashioned fun, just being kids, just playing. I don't even know what they were playing, but they were playing. They were all getting along. The adults were all inside, also getting along. And not hanging out in the rain. No big deal.
We weren't fighting.
And I got a text from a friend who also lives in town, and she is a friend who has a scanner, a police and fire scanner. So she always has it on.
Right.
And I've said for years I want to get one. And I just haven't. So she texted me and she said, oh, you've got some excitement going on in your neighborhood again. And to preface this, 2 days prior, there was a home invasion.
Yes.
Right around the corner from our house at 3:00 in the afternoon. It was not random. It was someone who was known, like the person who was assaulted knew the suspects. But essentially 2 cars pulled up, 6 to 8 guys with baseball bats got out, went into the house, beat this guy up. And so it became a conversation we had to have with our kids. Like, what would you have done if it wasn't a half day that day and you were getting off the bus right then when that happened? Kind of that conversation. So already that sort of like dread at being a parent was on, I don't know if it was for you, but it was on the forefront of my brain.
Absolutely.
Because we had just had to have those conversations and answer the questions and reassure them that like, no, you're safe. It wasn't random. It was because, I don't know why, but for some reason these people knew each other and that's what happened. And so then 2 days after the home invasion happened, this friend texts me and she says, you've got more excitement going on in your neighborhood. And I said, what do you mean? And she told me that what she was hearing on the scanner was that someone had broken into a house, may have actually been that same house, I don't really know, and was running from the police, and the police were chasing her through the backyards in our neighborhood. We hadn't heard any sirens, but I then turned on my scanner app on my phone and heard them getting closer to our house. And so we made the decision to pull all the kids in, and you did it, right? You and I think our oldest
Jackson,
did it, and pulled the kids in, and they all came in. No one complained about it or anything, but it was like, everybody get in here right now. Because we didn't really know the situation. Was this person armed? Were they high on drugs and not making, good, clear decisions? We don't know. So we pulled everyone in, locked the doors, listened to the scanner, and you could tell the kids were feeling a little shaky about it. She was caught like 3 houses down in a neighbor's backyard on our street and arrested. And there was no issues there. But it was a thing. And in the middle of that, also, we got news that someone that we know had been involved in a very serious car accident, potentially with a medical helicopter evacuation, like all at the same time. And so I went to bed that night.
But the kids knew too.
The kids knew because they were in the room with us. So the kids knew all that. And so that was stuff we had to like unpack with the kids that night is like, so what would have happened if you guys were outside, if we didn't know? And if it was a more serious situation where the police are chasing a person, a suspect, what would you do? And those are conversations I hate to have as a parent, because I just want them to be in a bubble and I don't want to think of anything bad happening to them. And so these sort of feeling like, so the inclination is like, I just want to lock the door and keep them in here. We're going to homeschool them. They're not going to socialize. They're just going to stay in. We're going to order everything online. They'll just play video games online. We're never leaving our house. We're never going outside.
That's an easy way out.
Well, that's the inclination.
Not easy, but
and
it's
so
a way out.
It reminded me of this article, and I thought it probably was time to kind of explore this. How do you
agree.
actually parent in these moments and instill hope in your kids when sometimes you feel really hopeless and terrified yourself?
Well, the thing is, you paint a good picture in this article in the second paragraph or third paragraph here, and you said it's daunting for us as parents because we have to find a way to paint a picture of hope for our children in the midst of so much hopelessness. We have to educate and protect our children, but also smile and put on a happy face. We have to be their sunshine when finding the sunshine sometimes seems impossible. And that's it. You paint a really nice picture of the struggle, or the concern and the stress of that situation for parents.
Right, because there's an inclination like let's not tell the kids about it. Like, let's not tell them why we're bringing them in. Let's just be like, hey, everybody, come inside for ice cream. But in that moment,
because they said so.
Right. But in that moment, I guess it would have probably been better in that moment to been like, come inside for ice cream. But in that moment, I didn't know, is someone running through with a gun?
Right now.
Are cops going to be firing at someone? I need them in the house now. Mm-hmm. And so how do you then sort of explain to them what's going on?
Well, and you have to, I guess, share some of the seriousness or I don't know what I'm trying to say, but tell the kids without telling them that it's a serious situation and you need to listen to me now. Because if you just went out there and said, just come in now. Why? I don't want to come in. Well, just because so. Even if you said ice cream, it's like, I just had cookies. I'm good.
Right.
You have to sort of explain with your body language, the tone or whatever, that it's a serious enough situation that I need you to remove yourself from this area and come with me.
And we've had these conversations sort of anytime a sort of mass casualty incident happens, mm-hmm. Or a suspected potential mass casualty incident happens, and we talk about like public gatherings.
Right.
And actually, to bring it back to Orlando again, I don't know if you remember, a few years ago, friends of ours were in Orlando, and they heard a loud crash at Disney Springs, the sort of outside pavilion. It turns out, I think it was a gentleman sort of flipping the table and getting mad. But everyone freaked out and panicked and started running. And so that family, I believe if I remember correctly, the mom and the kids, they were all together, the mom, the dad, the kids, and the dad said, stay here. And he ran towards the sound. Like his brain was like, let's fight. We're going to go help whoever needs help. And I remember our family then talked about it afterwards because it was a place we frequent. And so what would we do if we were, and we're going to be there in a couple weeks.
A week from today.
What would we do in that moment? Thanks for telling everybody when we're going to be traveling. What would we do in that moment? So we've had to have those conversations. And those are hard conversations to have because you'd rather just pretend. Like, just come in and get ice cream. We don't have to tell you anything.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's the bubble you're talking about.
The bubble.
Right? Yeah.
And, we could have not told them about the home invasion the few days before, but I need to know that I've had a conversation with them about what would you do if you did see that, if you were walking back from the bus stop and you were witnessing that, like what? And so then we had a conversation with our kids. What would you have done if we didn't know that the police were looking for this suspect and you saw the suspect run by with police? What would you do? And we live in a small town America, like middle class, suburban. Is there crime? Sure. But I don't think we're higher crime than other areas. It's a nice little town and bad stuff happens.
Right.
And so we still had to sort of have that conversation. And anyways, that night our kids were struggling. Because they were scared about the bad stuff. So it made me think of this article where I kind of share some tips. And truthfully, it made me think of this article because I needed to review this article for myself.
Yeah, this is a self-serving episode for us.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah, kind of processing some things.
So you said you're going to take us through a few key strategies?
Yes.
Okay. So do you want me to start?
Sure.
There's 10 of them.
Yes.
Okay. You ready?
Yes.
So tip number 1, be honest.
Right. We kind of just talked about that.
Yeah.
I think in general, honesty is the best policy because we live in a very interconnected society. And I've talked about this on another episode before about how a few years ago our kids' elementary school was in lockdown because sort of similar issue to the other day. Police were looking for a suspect.
Police chase situation.
Someone in the woods. This is not a reflection on our town. This happens literally,
like we live in a war zone
everywhere. And the kids were never in any danger, but of course, just an abundance of caution. And I need my phone in front of me because that's where the list is. Josh just gave me a list because my phone must have made a noise.
Made a noise.
And so the bus was late. The kids were late getting home on the bus. And so all the parents were kind of sitting around waiting for about 20 minutes. And the school was great about communicating with us. And so too was our Facebook page for the town. So we all knew what was going on. And what we also knew was that the school didn't tell the kids what was going on. The school told the kids buses are late because the buses are late. There's just a bus issue. Right. So buses will get here. You're going to be late getting home. Your parents know. It's totally cool. So the kids get off the bus, not scared, not thinking anything's wrong. And instantly one of the parents at the bus stop started talking about the real reason in front of everybody. Mm-hmm. So to my point about be honest because I guarantee you they're going to find out from somewhere.
That's the thing.
They're going to find out from another parent. They're going to find out because they're old enough to sort of be on social media, or they're friends with someone who maybe has an older sibling who has social media, or they're going to be in someone's house that has the television on and they still watch the news, or they're going to walk by the newspaper at the Cumberland Farms. Like, they're going to find out. So it's better for the information to come from you. So be honest. And I'm not just talking about, we're talking about local examples, but I'm talking about those big things too.
Absolutely.
I mean, that happened yesterday, or well, when this comes out, like a week ago, when we were at a sort of local intercollegiate summer baseball game. And our oldest turned over and was like, whoa, look at this kind of shooting that happened at a parade, because he gets news alerts. Yeah. So I'm not just talking about local stuff. I'm talking about the scary stuff, the stuff that makes you think, what is this world we live in? I think you have to be honest with the kids because they're going to find out. And if they're not finding out from you, then they're not going to think it's okay to talk to you about it and say, I'm really freaked out by this story.
You wrote in the article, when parents make the decision to provide their children with honest information, there is better control over what and how specific information is shared with their children. Mm-hmm. And that's the key there. It might be scary to be honest, but if you're sharing information in the way that you want to share it, you have control over what you're saying, then that's a better situation.
And so sometimes that means you have control over how they find out.
Right.
Right.
So that kind of leads us nicely into tip number 2, which is watch what you say. Right.
Yeah, that's hard to do. So yes, be honest with them, and also at the same time think about what you're saying as your kids get older, because they're hearing you, even if they're not in the same room with you. They're hearing what you're saying. They're hearing what you're saying on the phone to your friends. They're hearing what you're saying to your partner. They're hearing what is being said on the news, even if they're not in the same room. Sort of bring it back to a TV show that we were watching again, not to ruin anything. So I'm not gonna name a TV show.
I was gonna name a TV show too, but it's not that one. Go ahead.
Oh, interesting. One of the sort of key story points from one of the last episodes we watched is one of the kids, a second grader, revealed a pretty big secret that no one knew the kid had. But the kid had it because they overheard their parents talking.
Yes.
So often. Like, I always tell people, clients, friends, your kids, when they're kind of wavering, like, should I tell them, should I not? 90% of the time, your kids already know. They know. If you're talking about it at all with your friends at home, they know. So be really mindful of that, about the fact that kids might be overhearing you, and not just your own kids, but other kids.
Well,
so kind of watch what you're saying.
The same example of what you gave before at the bus stop.
Right.
You want to be honest, and you want to be the person that is in control of that information. You want to be the source of the information with your kids, but you also don't want to erroneously let a slip of the tongue out around other children that weren't ready to hear that information, or their parents didn't want to. Their parents wanted to be the person that shared it with them. But it makes me think of the Friends episode where Chandler reveals to the kid that he's adopted.
Oh, right.
That's a great. I'm adopted. That's a great episode. That's I love that show.
But that's a great example. Like, here's the adults in this kid's life all knew this secret.
Yeah.
And so they told someone.
Right.
And that adult assumed the kid also knew the secret. That, I know it's like funny, haha, and extravagant in that example, but that happens all the time. So think about that. Like, think about what are the secrets that you're keeping as adults from your kids.
Right.
To protect them. Are you really being careful? So
well, and when does it go from protection to a disservice almost?
Yeah.
Right.
Well, and so if we're thinking about in cases like this, like a mass shooting, mass casualty incident, like a van mowing over people. I actually think that might have been when I wrote this.
The one in Paris? Was it
Paris?
Yeah.
We were all on the field. We were at a football practice, and all the parents were getting alerts.
Oh.
It was a nighttime football practice. That must have been the year that we went to the Super Bowl and lost, I think.
That was a while ago.
Yeah. I feel like I wrote this a while ago.
Okay.
But there was this moment where, like, all our kids are playing on the football field. Well, they're practicing. And all of the, like, little siblings are running around. And all the parents' phones are dinging because we're getting this news of a mass casualty incident. And we probably all were talking about it in front of the littles. I call the little siblings the littles. And so really be mindful of that.
Yeah.
Because they're gonna hear about it from us.
All right, so that brings us to tip or strategy number 3 for parenting with hope when things seem hopeless, and that is consider development.
Right. So back to our example that I talked, that sort of started all this, sparked. So we had a range of kid ages in the room when we pulled them all in. We had, the oldest was 13, and then the youngest is 5. So we had a wide range of development, right? In the room. And we were talking to them all together. And so I think they all were understanding what we were saying and what was happening at a different developmental level. That's important to kind of keep in mind. And I know probably my sister and her husband went home and talked about it with their kids, and we talked about it with our kids. And the questions our 13-year-old had are different than the questions our 10-year-old had. But be mindful of that each kid's development is unique. And so keep that in mind when you're being honest with them.
Right.
And when you're talking about the scary things.
You wrote in here, a 12-year-old will want and need more specific and detailed information than a 7-year-old may need. Avoid going into too much detail or overwhelming them with details. Let them guide you on how much information they need.
Yeah. So it's a good rule of thumb to sort of check in individually with them too.
Yeah. All right. Strategy or tip number 4 is be a role model.
Also a strategy when we're talking about kind of supporting children's grief. Really, that's our role as a parent, is to be a role model. And that doesn't mean like be perfect. That means show them authenticity. So if you're scared, it's okay to show that you're scared. We've got to sort of balance that with our next tip, which is to reassure them. But it's okay to say, like, I'm scared too. And so here's what I'm doing to make myself not feel scared. Here's what I'm doing to reassure myself. But if you're sad, it's okay to cry. If you're angry, it's okay to be angry and to name it. It's important in these situations, when these sort of things that make you think, oh, the world is hopeless, when you're in those moments, to really kind of be authentic with your kids and role model that it's okay to feel. It's okay to feel.
And you said be sure to not only show your child that it's normal to feel emotions, but also demonstrate acceptable ways for them to express those emotions. So what comes to mind is part of being a role model is to demonstrate the solid, healthy way to handle and manage these challenges.
Right. Exactly. Because kids don't just learn that. And so if we're not talking about it with them, if the bad things happen, we see them on the news, we hear about them on the police scanner, and we don't tell our kids about them, but they're hearing about them, and then they're not seeing our reactions because we're having them in secret, then the kids miss out on an opportunity to ask questions, to have a real understanding about what's going on. And remember, we've talked before about how kids have magical thinking. So if they're hearing bits and pieces of things,
they're putting it together on their own.
We need to just do an episode about this show. But another example from the show we were watching last night, where the kid overhears something and he says, the mom says, "Do you have any questions?" And he says, "Well, I don't understand why they gave you salt." The kid who told this kid the thing overheard that there was an assault, but the kid didn't understand what assault was.
Yeah.
So they just kind of, with their thinking, with their kind of concrete thinking, assumed, oh, it must be like a salt shaker. And so that's the story they told. And so this other kid is like, I don't understand what it means that you got salt. And perfect example of what happens when kids overhear things. They overhear things that are bits and pieces, and then they fill in the gaps, and they don't ask. And in this example, this kid had had the information for months and never went to their parents because they didn't feel like they could, because they didn't hear it from their parents.
Exactly.
So we learn a lot from TV.
We do.
Sometimes TV gets it right.
Well, we can, we'll do another pint-sized perspectives, maybe pop culture review of...
Don't say the name of the show, because I feel like I just gave spoilers away.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So we're moving on to tip or strategy number 5, which is reassure.
Sure. So once the bad thing happens, reassure kids of their safety, because that's what they're always concerned about, is their safety. What if the bad thing happens to me? What if the bad thing happens to the people I care about? What are we doing to make that not likely to happen?
Well, when you pull them out of that situation initially, like the first step, like we did the other day with the person loose in the neighborhood, we had to remove them from the possibility of danger. But then I think my gut instinct is to go, everything's fine. You're going to be okay.
You're safe. You're safe.
You're safe.
Right now, you're safe. You're in the house. You're with us. I'm sure it's nothing. The police are here. They're going to keep everybody safe. You don't have to worry. And then we actually did take them outside after it had settled down, and the police were still here, but they had caught them.
I think it was good for them to see the police cruiser, and
it was okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think so too. But that, I think what they all wanted once they were in the house and kind of all looking at us was they wanted some reassurance, like, it's cool, it's safe now.
Yeah.
Everything's safe. But that's true for those bigger things too.
Right. You talk a lot about the safety of future situations.
Right.
Remind children of all the people and systems in place to keep them safe. Reassure them that you would never knowingly put them in a dangerous situation. Highlight safety measures that are in place, and they express their place, and they express fear over attending, if they express fear in attending a certain event. So let them know that it's going to be okay, and here's why. All of these different things are here to keep us safe.
Right. So again, I really think this grew out of was that Paris, where the person rented the van?
I think it was Paris.
I think that's what this grew out of, because you can kind of see flavor. It was about these sort of incidents that happen in public settings where there are large events. But we talked about that after this sort of little incident in our neighborhood. We talked about all the ways that they would have been safe even if we hadn't known it was going on. That their instinct would have been, if they saw anything amiss, to come inside right away. That it was bright out. That the chances of someone kind of having a gun or some sort of weapon and sort of just randomly coming up to them is very, very slim. They wanted that reassurance.
Right, exactly. And I guess we did a little bit of a disservice to you, the author, on this one. The actual title for tip number 5 is reassure, reassure, reassure. Because the final point of this paragraph is that you say repeat as many times as necessary. When you think you've said it all enough, say it one more time.
Right, that reassurance piece. And checking in with them, kind of at night before bed is a good time to check in and just kind of see where they're at and if they're needing more reassurance.
All right. Well, we have 5 tips left, but I think right now would be a great time to take a break.
Okay.
So we will be right back.
Welcome to Cinemarks. If you have your tickets, take your seats. The show is about to begin.
You ever dance for the devil in the pale moonlight?
Every week, Troy Adams is joined by an array of nerdy podcasting co-hosts.
Hey, Mom! The meatloaf!
They discuss films and television from the past, present, and future. It's always something different on the slate.
Life is a box of chocolates, Forrest. You never know what you're gonna get.
It's always kept fun, spirited, and they attempt to be entertaining.
60% of the time, it works. Every time.
You can follow the Cinemarks on Twitter and Instagram at CinemarksPod.
Go ahead. Make my day.
The Cinemarks podcast is available on Wooshkaa, iTunes, Spotify, and most other podcasting platforms. We hope you enjoy the show.
Everyone in this room is now dumber for having listened to it. I award you no points, and may God have mercy on your soul.
All right, we are back from the break. Welcome back, everybody. So we are going to do the final 5 tips for parenting with hope when things seem hopeless from Jenni's blog article. Just as a reminder, you can find that online on The Ascent, theascent.pub.com through the Medium website. Jenni had this article accepted for publication, so you can find that on that website. All right, so tip number 6 is limit media as you tip-tap away on your phone.
So ironically, I am sharing our school. Something else happened in town. Sorry, I just banged the microphone.
You got to get used to the new microphone arm.
And I'm just seeing now that the school is actually providing counselors.
Oh, okay.
Around the incident that happened, and so I'm sharing that because I literally was thinking this morning, why hasn't the school said anything? So that would be under reassure. So literally, as we were talking about reassuring, the school is saying
is reassuring
in the form of sort of emotional support, which we've talked about before. That school districts do a really great job providing emotional support when sort of bad, scary things happen. In terms of supporting grief, but they don't do such a great job otherwise. Anyways, so I was tip-tapping away on my phone. So sorry.
So where were we at? Oh, the tip is limit media.
Yes, you still hear me doing it?
Yes. It's because
I'm
your
multitasking.
nails.
I'm not even using my nails. Those are my fingers.
Oh,
Those
well,
are my
I can
thumbs.
hear them.
Super fast.
Everyone,
I wonder if that shows up on the stuff. All right. So limit media as I'm on social media.
As you're on social media. Do as Jenni says, not
as I do. Well, what do you think about that, about limiting media? It's interesting because we're a household now where we don't I think I wrote this pre-getting rid of cable. We are a family that has cut the ties of cable. So we don't just have the TV on like a news channel ever. But what we do have is news alerts on our phones. And so I think both of our kids know the news alert sound and they know to be like, what's going on? Because the news only alerts you to bad things.
Well, I think, do you mean limit media or social media or both? Are they one and the same now?
I think social media is media.
Right.
Social media is actually where people get their news.
You're right. Television news, social media accounts, and newspapers now provide nonstop around-the-clock coverage, the 24-hour news cycle of every horrific event imaginable. Pictures, video, audio clips, it's all out there and quickly can become too much for children. So I guess that's a good point. I mean, but, you referenced when one of our kids had that news alert on their phone about the shooting at the parade for the Toronto Raptors for their championship win. And there was a shooting, and he's a huge sports fan and gets sports alerts, news alerts on his phone. So that came up as a sports news alert.
True. I didn't even think about that.
On his phone. And so that's how he knew that. But the other thing is I'm literally seeing something on Facebook so we're both on social media. I'm on the computer. Yes, I see what you shared. But I'm also seeing, it's meant to be funny, but social media also helps us sort of navigate and manage these incidents, these big traumatic mass incidents, such as, Orlando or the shooting in Vegas a few years ago.
Or even small local ones, like when that home invasion happened. Actually, that's how we found out about it. We drove by because we both were home then. I drove by one way, you drove by the other, and we both said to each other, what's going on? Like, all of the cop cars that have ever existed in town are there. And it was social media a few hours later
that told us what was going on.
That told us what was going on.
It's not always accurate.
Exactly what I was going to say is the risk there is... It's people said what they thought was going on, but it doesn't mean it's true.
It's a game of telephone, really, when it comes down to it. But the other thing I wanted to say was you can use social media in a way to communicate your safety now.
Oh, that's right.
Right. So Facebook, I think maybe Instagram, Twitter too, have this function or this method of you saying you're marked safe from something. And this thing is meant to be funny, what I'm looking at now, I'm going to share, but it still has that element where people say, I think even my brother-in-law, sister-in-law, my brother and sister-in-law might have used this during the Orlando shooting.
I think so, because they
work down there.
Yeah.
This person said, marked safe from Disney's annual pass increase, which is obviously meant to be funny. But that function is available on social media to let your loved ones and your friends know that you're safe. It's
which
okay.
Speaks to how much we use media to communicate. Mm-hmm. So not really realistic to kind of limit it, but I guess I would change it now that I'm a few years out post writing this article.
And both of our kids have phones.
Exactly.
And they're on it all the time.
I guess I would say monitor media instead of limit it. Be really mindful. Well, and I say this in the article, be mindful of what children may be exposed to and consider whether it is necessary. And I talked about when 9/11 happened, I was doing home visits in the city of Boston. So I was working in early intervention. So my job all day, every day was to go from one house to another. I was at a house for about 45 minutes to an hour and a half, would sort of do my interventions and then leave and go to another house. And it would be in their natural environment. So life would be happening. I'd be sitting in like the living room kind of playing with the kids and their primary caregiver, and a grandmother might be in the kitchen or older siblings might be around. And what I was experiencing in the couple weeks after 9/11 is that the news was always on, and the news was always replaying video from 9/11. And so many kids thought that planes just kept crashing into buildings. They didn't understand that it was replaying footage. They thought it was happening again and again and again. And so really being mindful about the developmental kind of location of your kids and what is going to happen, how they're going to sort of ingest that media exposure. Right. Well, but also social media. So for the when things kind of happen on a bigger level, but then also like locally when things happen that involve kids or teens, they all sort of turn to social media and kind of gossip. I don't want to say gossip. They share information that they think is accurate. And so it's important for parents to kind of step in and kind of monitor that as much as possible. So I would change this from limit media to monitor media so that you really are aware of what your kids are consuming in terms of media.
Right.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that the other thing people might want to consider is you can't dispute the fact that kids have phones now and electronics, and they're on their social media accounts, and they have their own versions of those accounts that adults don't use, like Snapchat and whatnot. But
I use Snapchat.
Okay.
Not really.
But the thing is, I mean, you have an opportunity to share with them apps and websites that are reputable, right? So if you say, hey, if you're getting news alerts, check this out, check this different app out or this news source. Sharing with them, I guess the non tabloidy type resources, so they're getting good information
and educate them. Because how many times has our oldest, who is sort of consuming the most media, how often has he been like, "Mom, so and so just died," and we'll be like, "Bud, I think we would know. I think we would be getting, like news alerts on our phone." He's like, "No, I just read it on Instagram." So I'm kind of educating. Yeah. Although, what was he right? he was right about Big Papi. He was the one that told us about that.
Yeah,
a couple weeks ago.
First.
He told us, and we were like, "No, that didn't happen.
Big Papi was shot, and we were like,
that is not a real thing. Right. Someone is making that up." Because we were like, "Here's
closer to you."
We were like, "Here's another opportunity for us."
Did you just pull your mic closer to you? But I just set it up perfectly. I went over to you while you were talking and set it up perfectly, and now your levels are higher
because you were looking at me funny.
No, that's perfect, right there.
All right, okay.
We didn't believe him when he came to tell us.
Because we're so used to educating him about the fact that there's a lot of like hoaxes on social media about news, but that one was correct.
Right.
But so we, in that moment, then what we've become accustomed to doing is we hear something from him and then we all sort of check it. And so we fact checked it and realized that was in fact true.
Big Papi's on the mend though right now. So
what?
That's good. Big Papi's on the mend right now.
Yeah,
so
I heard.
good.
Yes.
Yeah.
But that also was an opportunity, an event that sort of sparked our kids.
At a place that we've been to before.
Right. Exactly. A different part of the Dominican.
Republic,
but yeah, just sort of, brought all of this kind of up to the surface also then too. So monitor media.
All right. So next, tip number 7, create an open dialogue.
So once you've sort of been honest with them and explained what's going on or what's happened, then it's important to kind of keep that door, those lines of communication open. Because if you remember our previous episodes, we talk about how kids grieve in spurts. They also kind of process information in spurts. And so they might kind of soak it in, think about it, understand it a little bit, and then move on and go play wiffle ball. And then a couple hours later might kind of think about it in a different way, or might have a conversation with a peer, or might watch a television show or something, and then they kind of think about it on a different level. It's really important that they know they can kind of go back to you and kind of explore that again, get more reassurance, ask more questions, ask the but whys or what if. So maintaining that open dialogue, even days and weeks afterwards, is really important and beneficial for kids.
Okay, that brings us to number 8, which is point out the positive.
So when we're focusing so much on the sort of scary stuff, right, it's hard to then remember that there's good stuff. There's lots of good stuff that happens. This is kind of like how the news approaches the world. They kind of approach the world that if it bleeds, it leads. So if it's negative, let's make it a headline. If it's something bad, let's focus on it. But they don't report the good stuff so much. So that's up to us to do, is to remember that we need to kind of focus on that positive stuff. We need to kind of find the positive stuff and share it with the kids. And so that the only thing they're hearing isn't just the bad, scary stuff. But they're also hearing about, the people that are making a difference in the world in a positive way, so that they were kind of evening out the sort of negative overload that they might be getting.
Right. You just gave up on the headphones, huh?
Well, they're lagging behind. So when I'm talking, I'm hearing it a little behind, and it's really making me crazy.
I can't.
Why does it do that?
I have no idea.
I want new headphones.
Right. Those are new headphones for
I
you.
want my old headphones.
Okay. I think they're over there somewhere.
Great.
No, I agree. I think that there's overabundance of negativity, of course, and way not enough positivity. Even in social media, right? People share the articles about the crazy stories and the negative stories or the incidents or what went wrong.
I think I would disagree with you. I feel like social media, well, when people are posting about themselves, they're mostly posting like great kind of fake stuff in a way, right?
That
They're
is
kind
true,
of, it's a negative lens.
positive.
But I also, maybe it's the stuff I follow. It's probably my feed. I follow a lot of like happiness stuff and shares like warm stories. So I think social media is going to depend on how you set up your social media. Which accounts you follow, which accounts you hide, which sorts of stories and information you specifically seek out.
Right.
If you spend all your time on Twitter, it's negative. But I don't know what it is about Twitter, but it's just negative and nasty.
It's a community of trolls and negative stories and disaster and trauma.
Yeah,
and
I definitely don't see as much positivity on Twitter.
Right.
I do get a lot of my good weather information from Twitter, though, because in the winter I become like a meteorological dork.
Yeah.
And in hurricane season, so gear up, Josh.
Right.
There's one forming.
Well, we get to
second week of July. We're watching it.
For real already?
Oh, for real, yeah.
What are the models saying, Jenny?
I'm not looking at the models yet. They're not accurate that far out.
Well, listen, you have become my go-to. You and another one of our friends. We like go to the two of you for like, all right, what's the weather like? What's gonna happen? It's pretty
like
good.
Last night.
Yeah, you
were all shocked. You let Jackson go out, and I was like, "Why'd you let him go out? It's going to be pouring." And you said, "I didn't know it was going to be pouring."
I thought it was going to be raining in the morning and not the afternoon, but that's okay.
Anyways, so I seek out that information on Twitter. So to sort of get back to the point here, seek out the positivity and share it with the kids. It takes a little extra effort, especially if you're just relying on like the evening news. One of my clients told me the other day that she likes to watch Good Morning America whenever she's home because it's a balance. It gives you some news, but also gives you some happy, positive stuff. And I thought that, well, not fluff. Like, yeah, fluff, I guess.
But it's positive.
The positive
it's meant
stuff.
To be
it's kind of a balance.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And I think that's interesting. But like we have news alerts on our phone. It doesn't go off and give us an alert when something great happens.
Unless a sports team wins something, right?
Right. True.
But yeah, mostly it's like, oh, this person died or this major accident happened.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So seek out the positive and share it with the kids because they're probably not hearing it as freely as we are.
And you write in the article, highlighting the positives can also go a long way to helping children feel safe. Mm-hmm. That's important.
Yes, for sure. Because they're not just thinking, oh my gosh, this world is a scary place. And we also need that. We also need, as parents, to be reminded that, like, okay, most days our kids are okay.
Right.
Most days we're safe.
You know, what you don't see, too, is the post-trauma, recovery, right? So you see the story in the news or something that happened. And, I mean, it's kind of like what happens with grief, where loss happens and people don't think about their friends' loss and grief 2 weeks, a month after to see how they're doing. But it's you never see the follow-up, right? You see the accident, but then you don't see, oh, these 3 people were transported to the hospital, but then you don't see that they're doing great 2 weeks later. This is a follow-up from the story we reported on. I mean, you never see that. That's not going to sell, of course.
So we're recording this episode in segments. So when we started recording this episode, we talked about how we knew someone who was in that horrible rollover accident. It was all over the news, but he's gone home and he's okay.
He's doing well.
And I haven't seen that all over the news.
That's my point.
So I think that's a valid point. Wait. we don't see that. We don't see the positive stuff.
You said I made a valid point, and it's recorded.
Well, even a broken clock is right twice a day.
All right. This is not a relationship episode. Okay. Should we move on to tip number 9?
Yes, for sure.
That is highlight ways to help.
So there are lots of ways to help, maybe not specifically related to the particular incidents that are making you fearful. Like, I don't really know what we could have done when the police were running through our neighborhood trying to find the person that broke into a house. I don't know how we could have helped. But I guess finding so you have to be a little creative.
Oh, I was ready. I was ready to throw down.
Well, we were ready to send our dogs out because we were like, hey, do you need some dogs? We're happy to donate. We've got 3. They're pit bulls that probably will make someone stop running away.
Once they get you, they're going to lick your face off.
For sure. Yeah. But you're going to be scared of them. Truthfully, they won't chase you. So they're just going to be more scared of you. They wouldn't have been helpful at all. In that instance, it would have been really hard to kind of think, okay, so here's a way. The police were like, tromping through the woods and jumping over fences and stuff. Maybe a way to feel like you're helping would have been to go bring them a meal. Go stop by the police station and bring some fresh cookies that night or bottles of water if it was hot, things like that. And maybe if it was a hot day, you could kind of, walk down and give them some bottles of water. Not in the middle of all of it, but, maybe when they're reconstructing things.
Imagine standing out there with like a tray of lemonades and they're running around.
With like the canine dog, they're doing searching. Yeah, be helpful, but don't get in the way. But that might be really important for kids to feel like, okay, bad stuff happens, scary stuff happens, but there's something I can do to feel a little powerful, a little more in control, like I'm making the world a better place. And maybe it's something completely unrelated. Maybe it's something like going to a soup kitchen, or maybe it is related. Maybe this person is dealing with a substance misuse issue. Maybe volunteering some time around that effort might be helpful. Be a little creative.
Right.
But it could be really important so that these things don't just happen in a vacuum and then they go on. Because for kids, they still kind of sit there and they kind of kick around in their brain.
You wrote, help your child to feel like one person, one family can make...
Oh, sorry.
Ooh.
I was trying to move it away so no one would hear me drinking my protein shake, and I smacked the table.
I can mute you for a second. Would you like to take a sip?
You have a mute button?
Yeah.
Yeah.
How do you think I've been eating my granola bar over here?
I thought you were just quieter than me.
No. So you wrote in the article, help your child to feel like one person, one family can make a positive difference in the world. And that's huge. I mean, a lot of kids feel like, completely powerless, like you wrote, and like they can't do anything. But giving them a little bit of a voice, a little bit of power to help in a small way might help them deal with whatever incident or event or trauma that they experienced.
Yeah, it makes them feel like they have some power. And that's really important. That's a real protective factor for kids.
Right.
And for adults.
And you also wrote, see what your children come up with on their own. They may surprise you. What you think is, there's your phone again.
So sorry.
You might need to invest in a new iPhone for Jenny.
Our child is out and about, so I need to have my phone on.
No, I got that.
Okay.
What I was going to say was, I think I was surprised recently when one of our kids used social media to shout out a situation. I don't know if it was a friend of theirs who just went through a loss or something. And, he shouted out on Instagram, thinking of you or whatever. Like he, on his own, used what he had, his resource, to reach out in a small, tiny way, just to say that he was thinking of his friend. And he's 10 years old. So I thought that was pretty cool.
That's true.
Yeah.
Oh, part of it is we talk about grief a lot in this house, and they're growing up in an age where everything they do is on social media.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, that's a good way for us to track what they're doing.
True.
Yes. Anything else on tip number 9 you want to add?
I think we covered it.
Yeah. I think be creative is a good sort of final thought for that one. Think outside the box a little bit. Okay. Tip number 10 is monitor behavioral changes. What does that mean, Jenny?
What kind of changes?
Behavioral. Did I say it wrong?
I don't. You say words weirdly.
Yeah, I got a little bit of a speech issue
I don't know,
on a couple of words. I don't know what it is. Probably back when I was 4 or 5 years old, I should have gone to speech therapy for a little bit. But
maybe instead of going to kindergarten twice.
I don't think that was a thing back then. Easy. Take it easy. You and your phone.
So what were we saying? Monitor for behavioral changes.
Yeah, would you like to talk about the article that you wrote? Or just let me sit here and flounder?
I forget about the articles that I write. And our printer is broken, so I'm relying on you.
Want me to read it to you?
No. I was also distracted.
Okay.
I was planning our social engagement activities.
Yeah.
Yes. So it doesn't really, I think, matter how severe or significant or scary any of these incidents are to us. Our children could perceive them in a very different way. So there might be something that totally terrifies us, and it doesn't terrify our children. And there might be something that we're like, oh, well, that stinks that happened, but, it's okay. And it terrifies our kids. The way that we're going to know that if our kids don't talk about it is we might see behavioral changes. If something is really terrifying for them, really causes anxiety, really causes some fear for them, it's traumatic for them, we're probably going to see that come out through their behavior. So perhaps they're going to be more withdrawn. maybe they're going to be acting out more. They might have a little bit of regressive behaviors. So things like toileting accidents, crying, if they used to like suck their thumb, or you sort of do like self-soothing, like playing with their hair or something like that, you might see more of that. So just kind of pay attention to those things that seem different. And when you're finding yourself thinking, that seems a little weird that they're acting that way, think back. Has there been something that has happened in, I'd say, the past 3 or 4 weeks for them that's worth exploring? So that's what I mean. Just, make sure.
I never thought about that. How you could view something as not a big deal, or, okay, well, this happened, whatever. And your kids totally have a different reaction to it that's a lot more powerful.
Mm-hmm. I was talking with someone recently who is very pregnant and has a child who I think is around first or second grade. And she was talking about how he's changed behaviorally lately. He's been really clingy. He's been like bringing her everything. He's been really worried about her. When they talk about her not being at home when she has the baby, he starts crying.
Oh, no.
And I said, have you asked him how he's feeling about it? Because everyone's really excited about the baby coming, right? And anticipates that perhaps there's jealousy going on. But I'm actually wondering if that the behavioral changes are suggesting a fear for him, that maybe he's afraid of a hospital for her and what that means. And maybe he's afraid of her really being hurt or her not coming home. And the mom was like, oh, I never even thought of that, because we don't as parents. We sort of get into our mindset, like, this is exciting. I'm happy about this. Like, I'm trying to think of all the logistical things. And we don't stop to think, could our kids be experiencing this and thinking about it in a different way?
Right.
I could be totally wrong. I don't know. I haven't followed up with them. But it's worth kind of, those are the moments. Like when you're saying, I don't know why he's acting this way. It's kind of interesting. Then really stopping and saying, well, let's ask him about it.
Well, it's easy for us to, deal with the behavior, see it on the surface and go, okay, that shouldn't have happened. You shouldn't have wet the bed again. What are you doing? You've been potty trained for this many years, or what is going on? And you express your own stress about whatever the behavior was, instead of focusing on what could be happening beneath the surface of whatever stressors that they're dealing with, the way they're emotionally responding to the incident, right, or the fear of the incident, right? That's the sort of the after effect. While you sort of deal with whatever happened, this trauma that they witnessed this car accident, or something happened to a friend of theirs, or something in the community, and then you sort of deal with it, and then maybe the next day or a few days later, you think it's done, but they're afraid that whatever happened might happen to them, or what if it happens again,
or to someone else that they love.
Mm-hmm. So you wrote, be careful not to shame your child about changes like these. Rather, give them some time. Continue to provide reassurance and keep a watchful eye. If you are concerned, reach out for support. Your child's school, their pediatrician, and local child therapists are all great resources. I'm going to throw your phone out the studio window.
I don't think anybody can hear it on the
Everybody
playback.
can hear it.
Nobody can hear it.
If fans of Changing Perspectives, if you can hear Jenni's phone frequency bothering the microphones, comment and call her out on Instagram, Changing Perspectives.
What is your solution? Should we
I don't know.
Should we just say to our child who's like roaming the town, hey, if you need us, too bad, so sad?
You could use my phone. My phone seems to be okay.
Oh, yeah. Can I use your phone?
Sure.
Okay,
well, that finished up the list. That ends it. That's the 10 tips. We can review them real quick, and then you can close us out, Jenni. So tip number 1 was be honest. Number 2 is watch what you say. Number 3 is consider development, your child's emotional and cognitive development. Number 4 is be a role model. Number 5 is reassure. Number 6 is limit media, like social media and regular media. Number 7 is create an open dialogue. Number 8 is point out the positive. 9 is highlight ways to help. And finally, number 10 is monitor behavioral changes. Jenny, what else do we want to say to close this out today?
Just remember that sometimes you're going to need to come back to this kind of train of thought. Sometimes there's bad things that happen, and you need a little reminder about how to parent with hope, because sometimes things do feel a little more hopeless than other times.
Right. Okay. Well, thanks for guiding us through that.
You're welcome. Thanks for reminding me what I wrote.
Yeah, no problem. Okay, everybody, that is going to do it for today. Thank you so much for listening. You can learn more on this topic by checking out Jenny's article, which is discoverable on theascent.pub.pub/10 ways to parent with hope when things seem hopeless. You can also check out jennybrandon.com for more information there. Any other resources you want to point out, Jenny?
Nope.
All right. Well, please follow us on Facebook, everybody, at Changing Perspectives Podcast, and on Instagram at Changing Perspectives Blog. You can check out our website by going to changingperspectivesblog.com or send us an email to changingpodcast@gmail.com. Go ahead and subscribe to the show so you'll never miss an episode, and we will see you next time. Say bye, Jenny.
Bye, Jenny.
The Changing Perspectives podcast is produced, recorded, and edited by Dizzy-Bird Studios, Whitman, Massachusetts. Visit Dizzy-Bird Studios on Facebook, facebook.com/Dizzy-Bird Studios.